December 21st, 1945. Chartwell. England is quiet, but it is not at peace. The war has ended, yet the world still feels unstable, like a battlefield that has stopped firing but hasn't lowered its weapons. Inside his country estate, Winston Churchill sits surrounded by silence, papers, and the weight of victory that feels suspiciously like exhaustion. Then the telegram arrives. Churchill takes it in his hand. His eyes move slowly across the words. He reads it once, then again. Not because he doesn't understand it, but because he does. General George S. Patton, Jr. is dead. No gunfire, no battlefield, no enemy responsible. A car accident. Churchill places the telegram carefully on his desk. He does not curse, he does not react. He reaches for a cigar, lights it, and walks to the window. Outside, the English countryside looks peaceful. Almost mockingly so. He stands there for a long moment, smoke curling upward, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Elizabeth Leighton, his secretary, is in the room. She waits. She knows better than to interrupt. When Churchill finally speaks, his voice is flat. Patton's dead. Just 2 words. Leighton waits for the rest. It always comes. Damn shame, Churchill mutters. Damn bloody shame. He exhales slowly. The man survives 4 years of war. North Africa, Sicily, France, Germany. A pause. And dies in a car accident in peacetime. Another pause. There's a cruel irony in that. This is not the Churchill the public knows. This is not the man of defiant speeches and poetic defiance. This is the private Churchill, the strategist who measures power coldly, without romance. Then he says something that reveals everything. The Americans don't realize what they've lost. Not yet. But they will. To understand why this death hit Churchill so hard, you must understand Britain in 1945. The country was victorious but broken, bankrupt, bombed, drained of men and material. An empire still standing, but hollowed out from within. Churchill knew a truth he rarely admitted publicly. Britain could no longer win wars alone. That role now belonged to America. American factories had fueled the war. American soldiers had filled the ranks. And American generals now shaped the future of warfare. And among them, Patton stood apart. Churchill had watched him closely. He had seen how Patton fought, not cautiously, not patiently, but violently and fast. While others secured flanks, Patton drove forward. While others debated logistics, Patton overwhelmed the enemy before they could recover. It was warfare Britain once understood. When the empire was young, when it was ruthless. So when Patton died, Churchill didn't just see a man lost. He saw a weapon removed. And he understood something unsettling. The war was over, but the next conflict was already forming. That evening, Churchill drafts a formal condolence message. Carefully chosen words. Appropriate words. Safe words. But they are not the truth. The truth comes out the next day behind closed doors. Churchill meets Field Marshal Alanbrooke, the man who had been his closest military advisor throughout the war. Their conversations are private, brutally Churchill honest. Opens with a simple question. What did you think of Patton? Brooke doesn't hesitate. Brilliant tactician, hopeless diplomat. A 19th century cavalry officer commanding tanks instead of horses. Churchill nods. Yes, he says quietly. And that's exactly what made him invaluable. Then comes the admission. We don't produce generals like that anymore, Alan. We can't afford to. Britain, Churchill explains, now produces careful men, measured men. Commanders who think politically as much as militarily. But Patton, Churchill says, leaning forward, fought wars the way wars have always been won. With speed, shock, and ruthless exploitation. Brooke points out the obvious problems. The scandals, The slapping incidents, the insubordination. Churchill does not disagree. That, he replies, is the price of owning a weapon like Patton. He lets the word hang in the air. A weapon. Not a diplomat. When you needed someone to smash through enemy lines and keep going, Churchill continues, there was no one better. Then the line Churchill almost never allowed himself to speak. The tragedy, he says, isn't that America lost Patton? He pauses. It's that we never had one of our own. British commanders were careful because they had to be. Every casualty mattered. Britain couldn't afford reckless aggression. America could. And Patton embodied that difference. In the weeks after Patton's death, Churchill keeps returning to the same idea. Patton was not easy. He was not polite. He was not safe. And that made him valuable. War isn't about being lovable, Churchill says privately. It's about breaking the enemy's will. He lists Patton's achievements. Racing across France, relieving Bastogne, crossing the Rhine before the Germans could react. These, he says, are the acts that win wars. But Churchill's concern now lies east. Stalin, the Red Army, Eastern Europe. The Soviets respect force, Churchill warns. They respected Patton because he frightened them. Patton was unpredictable, capable of action. A man who might actually attack. In the coming world, Churchill says, deterrence will matter more than victory. Patton's existence was deterrence. And now, Churchill concludes quietly, he's gone. Churchill's most complete assessment comes in a private letter to Jan Smuts. Patton was unsuited for peace, he writes. But in war, he was magnificent. Patton understood that wars are won through decisive violence at critical moments. The Americans will look for another Patton, Churchill predicts. They will not find one. In a final conversation with Montgomery, Churchill admits the truth. In 50 years they will remember Patton not despite his aggression, but because of it. Britain, Churchill admits, is managing decline. America is rising. And Patton embodied that raw, dangerous ascent. Now he is gone, and the world will feel that absence slowly, quietly, but permanently.